Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. One of the issues to emerge with COVID is the apparent difference in rates and severity for different ethnic groups. Generalising, if you're from a black and minority ethnic background, you're at greater risk when it comes to COVID. This is accepted. But for some, this has been connected to an argument about discrimination, and this is actually coming from senior figures. The chair of the BME was at the Health and Social Care Select Committee yesterday, so I took the chance to ask him about some of the views he'd expressed on this topic. Dr Nagpal talked about structural factors, differential attainment and anecdotal evidence on PPE. And I asked several times whether he thought the NHS was structurally racist. He wouldn't repeat the term, but kept repeating that there were inequalities and said, and I quote, "That's what I'm describing under that heading of racism." Madam Deputy Speaker, the NHS is probably the most diverse organisation in the country. It's doing heroic work to battle coronavirus. That effort has come from everyone within it, yet some regard the organisation as somehow racist. And for me, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is personal, because both of my parents worked as nurses for our NHS in Peterborough. Certainly.
Would the honourable member not agree that indeed the intensive care beds are filled today with COVID-19 patients from African, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds and is back at levels that had been during the first peak, despite earlier pledges from the government to learn lessons and protect the vulnerable? What we need is change now.
I really do urge people not to make interventions because it's going to prevent other people from speaking. Paul?
Well, I thank the honourable member for her comments, but she may, if she listens further to my speech, fully appreciate the points that I'm trying to make. Because this conclusion that the NHS is somehow structurally racist can only come from the new logic of our age. The standard form of this new logic is this. If 10% of people are characteristic X, then 10% of workers should be X, and 10% of every company should be X, and 10% of every role should be X, and 10% of every chief exec should be X. And where this isn't true, it's offered as evidence of discrimination. Differences are inequalities, and the logic assumes that what is unequal must be wrong. We have seen this logic applied to sex, to gender, educational or geographical background, disabilities and race. And now it's been applied to a virus. If 10% of NHS staff get COVID, then 10% of NHS staff with characteristic X should get COVID. And because that doesn't hold for BME staff, it's viewed as evidence of racism. I'm staggered at how many intelligent people seem to have bought into this argument. Characteristics cannot be taken in isolation. You have to control for variables. Moreover, no free society will ever see equal distributions for anything, even if individuals started from the same place. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we don't. We don't in character, we don't socially, we don't genetically, we don't economically, we don't in terms of upbringing or geographical opportunity or education, we don't in health and diet, we don't in career paths, we don't in our preferences. These may be inequalities, but these aren't evidence of discrimination. This doesn't change when characteristics are used to define groups. As any scientist should know, correlation isn't causation. And as scientists also know, getting particular diseases and viruses isn't uniform, particularly across ethnic groups. No organisation could escape from this mad progressive logic. If it wasn't damned for one thing, it would be damned for another, no matter how woke its values. Just look at The Guardian. I want to be very clear. Obviously, there are incidents of racism within our NHS. There is still racism within our society. The NHS is far more diverse than most organisations, but employs human beings, and it gets its fair share of bad ones. This needs to be detected, and it needs firm action. Likewise, the NHS can be unwieldy and inefficient, so problems aren't always dealt with as they should be. But this pandemic has shown our NHS at its best and its staff at their best. We ought to be proud of them.
Order. The honourable gentleman has had longer.